We are going to get into our classic music, entertainment, news portion of the video right here. I hope you guys are doing well. I really do. Sending all of my love to each and every one of you. Even if you're new here and you've never been here before, hi, and it's great to have you here. So let's go. Now, guys, with the Jann Wenner situation, have you been reading about that and keeping up to date on that whole thing? Crazy. When I read about what he said and all the stuff that's going on, it literally just flicked something off in my brain. I have a flicked brain, right? I know. But in case you didn't know, he got kicked off the Rock Hall board because of recent remarks he recently made that were considered to be racist and sexist. Now, after reading some of his comments, I think it's now very clear, and I will say crystal clear, that in order to get voted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you have to be one of the popular kids. Yeah, you do. And if Jann liked you, you are more than likely to get past go to get yourself on the ballot. Are you fuming? Did you think it was a popularity contest? I mean, I guess I did in the back of my mind, but you hate thinking that things are. And again, this is just my own opinion right now. But as we get further into it, we'll see. Now, before we get into that, Jann was interviewed by the New York Times, and Jann recently released a book called The Masters, and he told the New York Times writer David Marchese, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, that there were no women or people of color because none were articulate enough on this intellectual level. Right. Wenner was referring to the many interviews he did, which include rock and roll greats Bruce Springsteen and the Rolling Stones. So when he made that particular comment, I mean, he's done gazillions of interviews over the year with the biggest of artists. So allegedly, there were no people that were able to articulate their love for music well enough to his liking. I mean, I really, when I read that, it was pretty annoying. I mean, and the fact that he said it is pretty ballsy. But he said it. He said what was on his mind. Now, the day after the article was released, the rest of the board met, and in 20 minutes, Wenner went from 40 years of co-founding and serving on the Rock Hall committee to being ousted by the artists and peers who served with him. Over. Like that. I think Jann is, 77 years old. So pretty much you get to a stage in your life and you're going to just say what's on your mind. You don't care. But sometimes you got to rein it in. Sometimes you do have to have a filter. And even if you're thinking something, you may not want to say it. You just may want to hold back, throwing it out there. Wenner first worked at Ramparts magazine in 1967. He borrowed $7,500 to kick off the iconic Rolling Stone magazine. So the magazine industry was definitely in his blood from the beginning. Oddly enough, with his recent criticism of female musicians not being philosophers of rock, really? Come on. Why would you say that? He discovered iconic celebrity photographer Annie Leibovitz, and she has one of Rolling Stone's most famous covers ever, and that is a picture of John Lennon and Yoko Ono 5 hours before he was murdered outside of his home. So to be able to say that you have the very last picture ever of John Lennon is pretty epic. And Jann Wenner founded Annie Leibovitz. He discovered her. So clearly there was no problem with women back then because he wouldn't have given her the opportunity to shine for his magazine. Then there is the story of former Rolling Stone writer Robin Green, who is from Rhode Island. Holy moly, reading about her, I'm like, hi, I got to meet this woman. She was the only woman at the time in the 70s to be the only female journalist, and Rolling Stone only had 10% of female readership. 10%. So it was mostly dudes reading Rolling Stone magazine because he was only interviewing dudes. So it makes sense. Interesting because she got to interview John F. Kennedy Jr. in his dorm room. Now we're talking about Robin Green. And she had sex with him. She's very open about that. And David Cassidy, fast forwarding to him, whom Annie Leibovitz convinced for him to take off his clothes in order to change his Partridge Family image like he wanted to. He's like, listen, I am done with this squeaky clean boy thing and aura I have around me. So she's the one that got him to change his way. But Robin didn't have sex with David Cassidy. Now, the name of her book is called The Only Girl, and I'm sure that there are some pretty relevant and juicy stories in there. And I will link her book in the description box down below because to me it seems like it's a pretty fun read. Rolling Stone's popularity took a dip when punk rock came along as they didn't follow the crowd. And Spin and Blender magazine filled that void, but in 2006, circulation hit its highest ever and was selling 1.5 million copies every other week. So whatever they changed, clearly it worked. In 2017, Penske Media Corporation bought Wenner's 51% of the magazine, then later bought the remaining shares from BandLab. In 1996, rock critic Jim DeRogatis was fired from the magazine because he wrote a negative review of Hootie and the Blowfish and their album. So the New York Observer asked Jim if Wenner liked the band, and Jim responded that Jann is a fan of any band that sells 8 million records. So there was an undertone of not so niceness that Jann absolutely said, nope, you're out of here, dude. You're out. In 2022, Wenner told Ultimate Classic Rock that Boston, REO Speedwagon, Styx, and Foreigner have never, ever been considered for entry. Why is that? I don't know. Well, because like I said earlier, it seems like it's a total popularity contest. And if Jann didn't like you, you weren't getting in. Plain and simple, this is alleged and my opinion only. I have no concrete evidence of what I just said. Lou Gramm has said many times over the years, and he's been very open about this, that Wenner has a personal vendetta against Mick, so it's never going to happen. However, in a 2022 interview with Marc Maron, Jann said that he was actually really good friends with Mick Jones, so that one is really a mystery. Mystery to all of us because it's pretty conflicting things. Now, who am I going to believe, Jann or Lou? I'm going to believe Lou because Lou was there. Lou had a conversation with Mick all the time, not with Jann. So Lou is going to know exactly what's going on. Jann probably was just trying to bite his tongue and be nice. It's alleged, just saying. Now, as far as some of the other distasteful remarks that Wenner made, you can read them in the article because I don't feel right even repeating what he said. I just don't. And I'm not going to say it because you really should read the article for yourself anyway. And I will post a link to that down below. Today, Jann Wenner has been canceled, just like the artists that have not been inducted into the Rock Hall for one reason or another. Can't stand that. First of all, I hate the word canceled. I think it's rude. And I think it shouldn't even be a thing because no human being should ever be canceled. I mean, if someone does something super bad, okay, you just don't like them anymore. But to have an entire industry cancel you, well, okay, I have a person in my mind right now, yeah, that maybe, the industry is going to push you aside for the time being. But the word canceled is just, that could really push somebody over the edge if you tell them they're canceled or let them know that they've been canceled. I don't like that word. Let's just say putting someone aside for the time being. I like that. It's just a little nicer and gentler. Yeah. Wenner has said that he has nothing to do with the voting. Come on. But when you're helping to run the place, it's hard to believe that you don't have an influence on someone else's decisions. Correct. He ran the joint. So if he knows that Billy is going to vote for Foreigner and he doesn't like Foreigner, he's going to say, Billy, if you like it here, you may not want to do that. And Billy's like, okay. Again, alleged, just my opinion. Phil Collins, The Runaways, and Eddie Money are just a small slice of our favorite artists who have every ounce of right to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but they are also not there. Whether it be a personality conflict or not bowing down to whatever or whomever, the canceller, which again, I don't like that word, but it's here, is now the one being canceled. So the person who has probably had a major impact on many of these bands not getting into the institution is now ousted himself. So like my mom always told me, what goes around comes around. And I think this time it's coming around. Took a long time. Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes these things don't happen right away, but it's here and it's happening. But the question is, will things change for the Rock Hall going forward? Will they induct the bands and the artists that really need to be there? I don't know. Sometimes when things have been going along the same way for decades, they're not going to change them. Because why fix something that is supposedly and outrightedly looking like it works, but on the back end, there are many people yelling at you saying, it doesn't work anymore. You need to change what you're doing. Just like the whole different genre of artists and bands that they are putting into the Rock Hall doesn't make sense either. And we've all been saying that for a super long time. Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, awesome. Mariah Carey, that's great. I'm not saying they're not deserving, but maybe have, and I've said this a long time ago as well, have separate entities of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame umbrella, the Pop Hall of Fame, the Soft Yacht Rock Hall of Fame. Break them off into different entities. And put the people that should be there, direct them into the categories that they should be in so that each one can have their own audience. Because I feel like how it's being run now, it's just all over the place. It just doesn't make mental sense. I'm a flowy type of girl. I'm a squirrel. Okay, I really am a squirrel. I'm looking at something over there right now that I'm trying to not pay attention to. So I am a squirrel and I do lose track. I understand that. But when it comes to music, I do like to fit my bands and artists into their respective slots. That's just, music with me is a completely different thing than looking at a box of cereal. I just have a different way of looking at things when it comes to music. So only time will tell, but just got to tell you that Asia's not in the Rock Hall either. So will time tell that Asia will be in? I don't know. It's very disappointing. It really is. This whole thing has just been disappointing, and that's why I even don't talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame all that much, because it's annoying. Really. I'm just in a mood today. I'm just in one of those moods.
I'll tell you how I'm doing. Not well, bitch.